Clemson fans, welcome back to another edition of the Clemson Sports Show. I'm your host, Joseph Hastings. And as you can see, if you're watching us on YouTube, I've got a nice clean shave here. I had to get rid of the beard, keep the goatee, and I got a haircut as well while I was in Florida. So feeling refreshed and new. I'm joined by Matt Connolly, who's growing out his beard, but I think, according to some sources, he may shave it in an attempt to avoid looking like Ohio State head coach Ryan Day. Matt, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, doing well. Yeah, don't call me Ryan Day. I already get that enough. Yeah, doing well. I need to shave this thing for sure. Been a busy few days around Clemson with basketball opener, football interviews, Dabo's press conference yesterday, basketball commit today, signing day starting. So anyway, been a busy time around Clemson for sure. But yeah, I'm a little behind on my shaving.
Well, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of stuff going on right now at Clemson, not only with football, but like you mentioned, basketball. Wednesday, November 10th, marked the first day of the early signing period, which goes until November 17th. We're absolutely going to be talking about basketball in this episode. Just stay tuned a little bit longer for that. Matt, first of all, let's get into the big news of the week. DJ Uiagalelei, he's expected to go against UConn after suffering a PCL injury against Louisville on Saturday. What did you hear from Dabo Swinney, Tony Elliott, everyone this week regarding Uiagalelei's injury?
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like, they want to play him still, even with him being a little banged up with the knee. I asked Dabo Sunday if they thought about just playing Tyson and letting DJ rest and just get ready for the home stretch. And he said, Matt, if we lose this game, they're going to fire me or they're going to have a new coach in here. So I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but I think I go back and forth. I mean, in some ways I get wanting to play him. I also think, though, you're going to need his legs against Wake Forest in South Carolina to win those games. So, man, we'll see. I wouldn't mind just letting him rest and letting Tyson Pumachan play. And, he's a Connecticut guy going up against UConn. I think that'd mean a lot to him. He'll have a lot of family. I think he said 30 or so family members are coming for the game. So we'll see what happens. But it sounds like DJ's probably going to play. And I don't know how much he'll play or anything like that. But if he does play, I just think Clemson better make sure they protect him and try to let him get healed up before the Wake Forest and South Carolina games to end the regular season.
Yeah, so this is kind of where we disagree here. I would play Uiagalelei, and I wouldn't think twice about it just because the passing offense, as we know, this year has been inconsistent, whether it's due to injuries to the wide receivers, missed passes by DJ, offensive line issues. I just want to keep that rhythm that they've established over the past couple of weeks against Louisville and Florida State going. I don't know if you noticed, but Uiagalelei's 2 of his 3 top passing days in terms of yardage have come in the past couple of weeks. So I think, and I'm referring to this season because obviously he had more against Notre Dame and Boston College last year. I think they need to keep that rhythm going, even if it's just for a quarter or for a half. You need to get those wide receivers feeling good about themselves heading into the Wake Forest game. I know they're going to be without Joe Ngata, but, I want to see Justin Ross. I want to see Bo Collins. I want to see that connection between him and DJ continue. So that's kind of where I stand regarding his injury.
Yeah, and that makes sense to me. I think you definitely want to keep that passing game heading in the right direction. Like I said, if you're going to do that, you just better make sure you protect him because you do not want him to get hit on that knee and be hobbled. And I think Dabo said he hobbled into the end zone against Louisville. You don't want him trying to hobble around against Wake Forest and South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina has a pretty good pass rush. Wake Forest, I think you have some opportunities there to run the ball. Sam Howell did a pretty nice job moving the ball on the ground against Wake Forest, extending plays with his legs, finding ways to just get around, pick up yards, positive yards, keep drives alive, that kind of stuff. So I think DJ has an opportunity to do something similar if he's healthy and ready to go and able to run some in that game.
So let me throw it back at you in this way. Let's say DJ right now for the rest of the season is going to be hindered significantly by this injury and won't be the same DJ we've seen over the past few weeks, the rest of the previous games this season. Why not just bring in Tyson for some special run packages? We saw him, do some things against Louisville, in the run game. Could that be an option, where you just make DJ the primary passer and when you want to do those run plays, you bring in Tyson? I know it may telegraph it to the opposing defense a little bit, but that could be an option to explore.
Yeah, and I think they'll do that some. But like you said, it is kind of telegraphing. I mean, Tyson hasn't been he's made a few plays in the passing game this year, but he hasn't been great. He hasn't been consistent passing the ball. So, I think maybe that's an option, but you also don't want to telegraph it. I know they came in and threw a deep shot against Louisville this past week, but I know pass interference was called. It wasn't a great pass, though. He didn't really have a great chance. I think it was Justin Ross was the receiver, didn't have a great chance to go make a play. So, Tyson also had a pretty simple out throw that he missed pretty poorly. So I don't think that he's a guy that you want coming in and throwing the ball all over the place. So, yeah, I mean, I do think it kind of telegraphs it some if you go that route. But certainly I think Tyson will play this game and probably the last two as well.
I think my main concern, and you mentioned it right there in your previous response, is that the passing game essentially stalls when Tyson is on the field. And, maybe he'll develop in future years, but just right now, he isn't at the point where DJ is in terms of making those plays near the sidelines, making passes near the sidelines, fitting it in those tight windows, launching the ball deep. And I want that offense, I want that passing attack to continue to flourish the way that it has been over the past couple of weeks. I think it stalls against UConn instead of being able to gain some or keep that momentum if you keep in Uiagalelei. Now, you talked about protecting.
Hey, just a counterpoint, though. I kind of see it as a bye week. I mean, maybe you get some work in practice. You're not getting hit in practice. You get your practice reps in and have a bye week on Saturday. So we'll see.
What did Tony Elliott say? He said UConn has Division I players and they play hard.
They play hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So. I mean, I guess you can say that pretty much about every team besides SC State that, Clemson would face, but I don't know. I'm at the point where I just want to let DJ continue that momentum, continue feeling good about themselves for the next, for the next few days heading into that Wake Forest game. And we'll see what they end up doing. We know that DJ is going to end up playing, just we don't know how long it's going to be. Yeah,
we'll see what happens for sure. But I just wanted to make that point back at you.
Well, you also talked about one of the points you made is protecting DJ or Tyson, whichever quarterback it's going to be on Saturday, for how long it's going to be, I should say. We know that one of those people who isn't going to be helping block them is Paul Teo. Dabo Swinney recently announced that he entered the transfer portal this week. Matt, what do you think is going on? There's been a lot of losses here this season from Clemson to the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think if you look at them individually, though, it's just guys that weren't really getting playing time. I mean, Teo played one snap over the last 4 games. Clemson's offensive line has been banged up, and he still hadn't been able to get on the field. And his one snap, honestly, wasn't great. Dabo said he's got to be ready to go in there. He goes in against Florida State and gets beat pretty badly on a draw play. So I think that's what that situation was. I mean, you can just go down the line. Lynn J. Dixon wasn't getting a lot of playing time. He's a senior. Running out of opportunities, wasn't getting along great with Coach Spiller. Michael Dukes wasn't getting a lot of playing time. And then he had a team issue that Dabo told us about where he didn't get into a lot of details, but just said he was going to be facing some consequences and decided he wanted to get in the portal. And then Joseph Charleston, a safety who also wasn't getting a lot of playing time. And there's a lot of young safeties on this team who are really talented. RJ Mickens, Andrew McCullough, Tyler Venable, some of those guys were playing ahead of him. And so, I think that it makes it sense for him to move on as well. So I think if you just look at it individually, it's not a huge deal. Obviously, if you say, yeah, you had 4 midseason transfers, it doesn't sound great, but I don't think there's any big issue going on within the program or anything like that. I just think that just kind of the way it's gone.
All right, so where I'm really interested in this is the numbers aspect of things, because you talked about the 4 midseason transfers. They only have 13 commits right now in the 2022 class. We don't know how long, how large that class is going to be. It could potentially be 18, 19. We don't know at this point. It kind of remains to be seen. With the numbers and how things are looking, though, you would expect that Clemson should go into the transfer portal themselves and add some players, given the losses that they had to the transfer portal. Is that something that you think they'll explore?
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I know that Dabo's kind of been non-committal on their plans, other than to say if they need to use the portal that they will. But yeah, I mean, I think they do. I do think they need to get some veterans in there. I will say with the offensive line, they're not at a bad spot. I mean, if Jordan McFadden comes back, that'll put them at 15 offensive linemen, which is a number Dabo likes to have. So I don't think that's a huge deal as far as the offensive line, really. But I could see them going, whether it be receiver, wherever it may be, defensive line, somewhere. I could see them going to the portal and maybe looking for a little help.
What's the biggest area you think they need to address in the portal, or heck, even potentially on the recruiting trail with a month and a half left until signing day?
Yeah, I think, I was just sitting here trying to think about that. I think maybe receiver, honestly. Like, I know that there's a lot of young talent, but I still don't know. I know Bo Collins has kind of moved into that slot, but I still don't know that, they have necessarily a true slot guy. So, we'll see. Xavier Thomas is moving on. You'll have Miles Murphy back, but maybe depending on what happens on the defensive line with guys like KJ Henry and Justin Maskell and some of those guys, maybe you look there. I think they feel pretty good at linebacker. The secondary's pretty set. So I think it'll just depend. There's a lot of time between now and the start of next season. So maybe see how things unfold during spring ball and just kind of go from there.
So, Matt, now it's time to switch on gears over to the rest of the season, how it could play out, and how Clemson can make the ACC Championship game with all the injuries that they've suffered this year and all the ups and downs. It's just incredible that they even have a path to making it to Charlotte next month. Let's get into this path, though. It's crazy. It's more confusing than the College Football Playoff Committee's selection in terms of how they rank teams. I don't know what I saw this week. That there was a lot of questionable decisions there, but I want to get into this. So Wake Forest plays NC State this weekend, but Clemson fans, honestly, I know it's a noon game for the UConn game, but this night game between Wake Forest and NC State is going to be the one you want to pay attention to. So let's say Wake Forest beats NC State. They would then need to lose to Clemson and Boston College, and NC State would need to lose to Syracuse or North Carolina in order for Clemson to get to Charlotte. All right, let's reverse it. Let's say NC State beats Wake Forest. Clemson would then need to beat Wake Forest. Obviously, that's the game that they just have to win. And then they would need NC State to lose to Syracuse and North Carolina. They would need to lose both of those games. Matt, what's the easier path for Clemson to get to the ACC?
Oh, man. Man, I honestly think what the best case scenario is for Wake Forest to win. And I know that would put Wake Forest still undefeated in the league, and that would give NC State 2 losses. And so, in theory, Wake Forest would have a better chance. But I just think that there's a better chance of Wake Forest losing to Clemson and Boston College and NC State losing to either Syracuse or North Carolina than there is for NC State to beat Wake Forest. And then you would have to root for NC State to lose to Syracuse and North Carolina. I just don't see Syracuse beating NC State at NC State. So neither of them are great options, but I think probably the best bet is for Wake Forest to win and then hope for some help from Boston College now they have their quarterback back.
So, yeah, I agree with you. That's going to be the path that Clemson needs to happen in order for them to get to the ACC Championship. Obviously, that's going to be the easiest path for them, if you can even call it easy. So let's look at the position Wake Forest would be in under your scenario there. Let's say they beat NC State and then they lose to Clemson, which I would pick Clemson in this game, as of right now. That means they would have lost to North Carolina. They would have beat NC State, a top 25 team, and lost to Clemson on the road, which, a lot of people perceive would be a top 25 team at that point. Then they would be heading into Boston College with all the pressure in the world on them, a position Wake Forest is rarely in, on the road, November 27th. That's going to be a big game. I just like Clemson's chances a lot more than, like you said, NC State having to lose their final 2 games of the season after building up all of that momentum, and one of those games being Syracuse and the other being North Carolina, which despite beating Wake Forest hasn't lived up to expectations this season. So yeah, that's going to be the path. It's very confusing. A lot of stuff has to happen. Clemson is far from in control of their own destiny, but there is a path, and I think it isn't out of the realm of possibility for them. Yeah,
I agree with you. With that said, Wake Forest is a better team than Boston College. So you're kind of hoping at that point that, like, man, Wake's lost 2 of 3 games. They're kind of coming in, struggling a little bit, kind of limping to the finish line. Mm-hmm. Boston College has Jerkovich back. So, they're feeling a little bit better about themselves. So maybe they find a way to win. I still think Wake Forest would be favored in that game and probably decently sized favorites. And I'd probably pick them to win, but still a better scenario than hoping NC State's going to lose to Syracuse and North Carolina.
But that Boston College game would be their third road game in their previous four matchups. So I think that's really interesting as well. Having to play on the road, so much expectations, every single game feeling like a playoff game for them because their conference hopes depend on it, and up until last week, their playoff hopes depended on it. So, yeah, I think it's a very fascinating article that you wrote. We're gonna do our plug a little bit early on. If you all aren't a subscriber of ClemsonSports.com, go ahead and subscribe, get access to excellent articles that Matt's writing, recruiting coverage that I'm providing, all of that. You're going to get it there at ClemsonSports.com for $10 for a year or $1 for 4 months. So be sure to sign up. And another reason why you should sign up is because we're also providing basketball coverage, a lot of basketball coverage. Matt, what's the latest with Clemson's basketball team, both on the recruiting trail and on the team itself, because they opened up their season on Tuesday night?
Yeah, so first of all, big commit today, landing RJ Godfrey. Clemson missed out on Ben Allen Lubin, which is a forward that they were hoping to land. He ended up going to Notre Dame. But getting Godfrey is just a huge pickup out of North Gwinnett High School in Georgia. He's a really good player. A really good scorer. He can get to the hole. He said he likes finishing through contact. I know Clemson, talking with some people over there, they like his ability to score the ball and guard really well too. So I think it'll be a good culture fit. Was really impressed talking with him. So yeah, definitely a good pickup there. And then, on the court, man, it was a tale of two halves for sure last night against Presbyterian. Just an awful first half is probably the only way to put it. You find yourselves down at one point, double digits to a PC team that was an 18-point underdog. Mm-hmm. But, they battled back. They found a way to win, ended up pulling away and winning rather comfortably. So, I think all in all, it was a pretty good showing for this Clemson team. It's a Clemson team with a lot of youth at some key spots. You got PJ Hall, who's a sophomore. I guess I should say new faces. David Collins, who transferred in, Naz Bohannon, who transferred in, trying to mesh with some of the older guys like Alamir Dawes, Nick Honor. So I think there's just a lot of moving pieces. And just trying to figure out the right rotations, who plays better where, which group works better with this group, that kind of stuff. It's kind of what Clemson's going to be doing early on this season, and they figured it out in time to do that against Presbyterian Tuesday night. But yeah, like you mentioned, we've got a story up on that. Several takeaways from that game, and just what we learned, what rotations seem to work better. So yeah, check that out at ClemsonSports.com.
Yeah, it was a big game by Alamir Dawes, who really lit it up in the second half. They struggled from the free throw line. Clemson did in the first half. I believe the numbers were 7 of 15 from the strike in the first half. Just you got to fix that.
At one point they were 5 for 13. Just awful.
You've got to clean that up, especially when you play against better teams who are going to take advantage of that. But with that being said, Hunter Tyson really stepped it up, especially in the latter part of that first half. Didn't even really need to play too much in the second half. He provided a lot of, I think at one point he was 3 of 6 in the first half. The rest of Clemson's offense was 4-14 from the field. So he was able to provide a spark for them when they really needed it. And that's all it takes in basketball. You need some guys to go on personal runs if the rest of the team is struggling, and they were really able to get that. And on the recruiting trail, they're going to be adding some good players. You mentioned RJ Godfrey. By the time this video is published, 2 players in the 2022 class would have been signed with Clemson, those being Chauncey Gibson and Chauncey Wiggins. So two Chaunceys there coming in for the program. Chauncey Gibson, I should say, got to specify which one I'm talking about. He's a really interesting one. He's a 6'6" guard out of Texas. He was down to Final Four that featured SMU, Old Dominion, Texas Tech, and he ended up choosing Clemson last month. He compares his game to New Orleans Pelicans guard Brandon Ingram. He said that he can shoot, he can defend. His coach Nick Smith at Kimball High School said that they're getting a steal. Clemson's getting a steal in him. So really interested to see him next year. And then also Chauncey Wiggins, both of whom we spoke with this week for signing day. He also made things official. So yeah, a lot of good stuff. Clemson's basketball program, it definitely seems to be trending in the right direction under head coach Brad Brownell. And then also they're going to be having some big games coming up. Duke on December 29th. That's going to be one for fans to pay attention to. And we're definitely looking forward to providing you all comprehensive coverage on Clemson's basketball team.
Yeah, for sure. Another big game Friday against Wofford. Brownell was saying last night it's hard because Wofford won by like 50 points. So he was trying to watch some film of that stuff and of that team. And, they're not running any of their plays. It's some new personnel there. You're trying to figure out what the heck they're going to try to do against you. So these early games, and, I told our subscribers before the Presbyterian game that I thought that would be a tough game. Just they returned a lot of talent. They had some bigger guards that were going to give Clemson issues. So these early games, like I said, I wouldn't worry too much if some of these are close. I mean, Wofford's obviously had a really good program under Mike Young. Jay McCauley, who worked under Young, is doing a nice job there now. So, not the Wofford of old, but still a team that can come in and maybe give Clemson some fits. So, I wouldn't worry too much about these games early on in the year if they're a little closer than you think. Like I said, we'll have lots of coverage up, but definitely some parts that you like on Clemson's team right now. And then also for sure some things that need to get cleaned up over here over the next few weeks.
Absolutely. And we're going to be looking forward to providing you all coverage throughout the season, specifically when they open up ACC play. We won't be on the road there at my hometown, Miami, but we're definitely going to be providing you all coverage throughout the year. And Matt, before we sign off, is there anything else that you'd like to tell, people who are watching the show on YouTube or listening on our podcast?
Yeah, no, just keep it tuned to ClemsonSports.com. Got the film review coming up for the Louisville game later this week. I know you'll have lots of recruiting content. It's a huge recruiting weekend. Lots of official visits coming in with commits and some targets as well. So, yeah, keep it plugged over to ClemsonSports.com for all your updates.
Absolutely. For Joseph Hastings, Matt Connolly, we're signing off. Stay tuned till next time.